at 6761 Donovan Drive. By M1 EP Management Corporation. By Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Lee Trevino, with El Paso souvenirs, decor, and gift shopping. And now, El Paso History with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for the El Paso History Radio Show, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages that we're up on these days. Find us generally under El Paso History or El Paso History Radio Show on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and even Twitch.tv these days. And today we are talking about an interesting subject here. Of course, today is June 11th, 2022, and we're talking about the Shakespeare ghost town and how it exemplifies a particular and interesting subject of regional history and even shades of what the actual El Paso area could have become if not for other events. Now, of course, you can find us in all the places. I do want to remind you about the YouTube channel, particularly because that's where you can find a lot of previous segments we've had up there and essentially our archive, as well as going to be up there as soon as the link goes through over on the other great Facebook page, Remember in El Paso When. And this is, of course, the place where we say Texas history begins in El Paso. Do have a history moment today at the top of hour 2 from documentary filmmaker Jackson Polk. Today he talks about Fusselman Canyon and the Franklin Mountains. So talking again today about our subject, about the Shakespeare ghost town. Today guests are in studio with us, Keith Wilden, historian with Shakespeare Ghost Town, and we may have some others joining us by phone, but we'll keep it in studio here for the moment here. So thanks very much for joining us here, Keith.
Good morning, Andrew.
Let's make sure to get right up on that mic there. And so we are ghost town is an interesting phrase to explore and even think about, because I will be perfectly honest, I kind of equate it with quicksand in the way that cartoons growing up made me think that it was something I would encounter a lot more than I ever actually have in my life.
I kind of disagree with that because there's quite a few of them floating around out there.
That's true.
And of course, it all depends what you call a ghost town. Some folks call White Oaks a ghost town. It's still got about 20 folks living in it.
Yeah, that's true. So that's a kind of a decent question right off the bat. What is the definition, at least what you work with, of what a ghost town is?
A town that went from over 3,000 inhabitants down to 2. I mean, that's basically, hey, its purpose in life is no longer needed, and it's people moved on elsewhere. Okay, so it is something that was an enterprise as opposed to, say, I mean, there's many different, like even in this area, wildcat shacks, perhaps, and things that were built up and then maybe abandoned. But this is talking about a level of habitation that was, some kind of, local bustling area that then ended up being, well, abandoned. That's the kind of key part of the phrase, is the abandonment, and that's what then lends it to. It's not necessarily a phrase about haunting, though it doesn't necessarily exclude it either. That's another story, but yeah, but like I said, all economics. Because basically, once it's like in Shakespeare's case, it was a mining camp, and once the mines were shut down, there was no reason for folks to stay there.
So a lot of the areas that you might, in particularly this region of the world, it might be the issue of that, the reason for the town's existence, if it was based around, again, primarily mining, though there are other instances I'm aware of where it was agricultural or perhaps transit-based.
Railroad. I-10, if you ever notice, there every 20 miles along I-10, you got to exit for another town. 90% of the time, the towns are no longer there, only 1 or 2 buildings. Those were the old section towns. Once basically, they would be responsible for maintaining the rails of 10 miles on either side. And once railroads got more efficient and maintenance, well, they no longer needed them. So they're gone. They're just memories. They're just exits on I-10.
Exits on I-10 and dots on the map, maybe technically.
Yep.
But again, as things and technology has changed, and when the railroads were being developed, there's been some modern, decent, well, it's all fiction, but of course, examples of what that history was like, essentially that as like transcontinental railroads were coming through, there was a certain amount of land granted to them on either side in order to essentially facilitate their construction and finance it without actually providing any money for the most part here. So which led to some perhaps interesting route choices that may have been a little bit more meandering than just a straight line. But in this case, in our region here, it did then facilitate the building of these towns and them taxing and renting, etc.
Right.
But again, as technology changed. So what was the story then for this Shakespeare Town here? Because it's not even the only name of the
No.
location people may know.
Originally, it was called Mexican Spring. There was a small spring that flowed year round. Wasn't very big. Because of that, this was one of the alternating water stops in the old Cook's Wagon Road heading out to California. I can't prove it, but more than likely, Ben Dowell, our first mayor, probably hit there either on the way out or the way back from California in 1850.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's just something I play with. It all depends where the Apache were at the time and what the water conditions were on the time of the road. But yeah, it was one of the possible stops. It was part of the southern road of the gold fields.
Okay.
So
yeah, what you're on the way to, like you were mentioning a little bit about,
Yeah.
the idea of transit, but I mean, the being on the way to another very important thing is another route would have been significant reason to go there. But also what you mentioned there, water, because
that was a big deal.
it doesn't just not that it ever even now just comes out of the faucet. There's a whole process that is behind it, of course, but the infrastructure that allows us to have the modern miracle that is indoor plumbing was nowhere in existence as of the start of many of these areas. Because I mean, if you even look further back historically, of course, where people lived and settled tended to be where
the water
there was water, because if they weren't there, they weren't going to be there for long.
Right. And like I said, that was the main attraction for that area to begin with. That spring continued to flow up until the earthquake of May of 1886.
Oh, wow, really?
Remember when we felt here? Well, yeah, it shifted the stratum there and cut off the flow. So at that time, they only had to go down about 25 foot to hit the water line. Another trimmer now is anywhere from 200 to 500.
Which, again, at that point in time would have been quite the significant barrier, essentially, because if it goes within, easy reach, well reach, to then you're going to be hard pressed to not involve pneumatic systems at that point there to actually make it feasible. Because, like, sure, it could be done if money and time are no object, but that's not the kind of thing that facilitates further development unless there's a really good reason to still be there, which there was for a bit, but not forever.
Right. That in 1869, prospectors discovered silver in the region, and the prospectors took their claims out to a company in San Francisco. It was formed and financed by the Bank of San Francisco, and they set up their camp at where Shakespeare stands now, and they called it Ralston City. That was our biggest boom. We had over 3,000 people living there at the time. Mostly men, but what women we had were not the type you wrote home to your mother about.
I mean, there's a level of metropolitan nature, I guess you could say, that happens whenever there is a reason for settlement to pop up there. And again, it's an interesting and separate show, kind of like you mentioned, about how there were ladies of the night is another way to put it here. But I mean, it's kind of an all-day situation there at that point in time that was about civilizing those areas, because it's one thing to just need a place to sleep and mine, but another thing to want a level of cleanliness, et cetera, services available. But again, the amount of like small boom town, it's fascinating because we actually got the map of the location we're talking about here, if anyone is wondering about it. So we got El Paso on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. And then you basically, if you want to get there, you would go up to Las Cruces, continue on with I-10, and then it's going to be essentially just south of Lordsburg, right?
2.5 miles south of Lordsburg. Matter of fact, as you're coming into Lordsburg from I-10 from El Paso, when you see those water tanks on the hills to the left, it was right behind them, down that little low spot behind them.
Okay, so that makes sense here. And again, the map we got up over on our social media is what we are referring to there. And so as kind of a mention there, as we're also looking at this map, you can see, I mean, all those little divergences, the little points coming off of, again, those exits off of I-10 you were mentioning here. This was not exactly an isolated incident that could be seen here about how this town came to be and then ceased to be, except, again, in memory and remaining structures, but no longer inhabited. There's, I mean, if we were to zoom in on this and truly do the view, I'm sure we'd find numerous, even within just this sector of essentially, West Texas, Boot Heel, New Mexico kind of thing.
Well, because basically it's like a lot of the towns, of course, got upsurfed by the railroad towns. Deming is a good example. That was a regional depot, so that's why it was built up so big originally. Shakespeare itself wasn't so much, it was replaced by Lordsburg, but when the mine shut down for the last time, the big mining operations shut down in the last time in 1932, the little black chapter of American history, a lot of the residents were rounded up and shipped into Mexico. This is, in the 1930s, the U.S. government rounded up a bunch of almost all the Mexicans living in the southern parts of Arizona and New Mexico and parts of Texas, and just put them on boxcars and sent them back to Mexico. This is during the height of the Depression. During this third boom in the 30s, most of the folks who work in the mines and living in Shakespeare were Mexican nationals. So it's one of those little dark chapters we don't talk about that often, but it did happen.
Yep, recognizing and understanding it is certainly important.
But I said that, of course, anybody that was still left, well, they ended up went where the work was, and it was in Lordsburg at the time. So that's where the final shift to Lordsburg happened.
And of course, that's just kind of a very bare scaffolding of the history we're talking about here, because there's a lot more intervening here. I mean, people may have clocked right now that there was a different name of even this town you were talking about here, because there was a lot of movement and differences of it here. And so we're not even just going to be talking about Shakespeare Ghost Town in its own, but also how it kind of exemplifies in its own way how things developed here in the Southwest and what could have potentially been the outcome of El Paso if not for other intervening factors we'll get into here. I mean, people, other pseudo ghost towns people may be more familiar with, Tombstone, among other things. There was a lot of expectations for a lot of these areas at the time here. I remember reading back in the day that Tombstone was going to be the Chicago of the Southwest here. Yep. That was going to be the boom town of the area. And of course, well, if you've ever visited there, they have a gunfight that they talk about and a few residents, and that's mostly involved with the reenactment of the gunfight.
And a lot of retirees who are involved in the reenactment of the gunfight. The thing is, though, it's like it gets me is as opposed to some of the other towns. Silver City is a good one.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Silver City, the oral history from the town, and some of the folks in Silver City back this up. 1969, we got the big strike. Everybody's excited. The mines are opening up. That's when Ballard and his friends from Pinos Altos came down, took a look, said, hey, this black loamy stuff, that's silver. I know where a pile of that is. They staked their claims out up there and started building Silver City. Silver City, from the beginning, they were going to make that a Chicago of the West. I mean, they didn't even, it was built with brick from the straight up. The mines were rich enough there; they could afford to haul in all of the brick by wagon road.
Oh wow!
It wasn't until well in the 1890s that a railroad line was actually run to Silver City.
And that is a very important factor to note here, because it's interesting the way we look at it. Like the fact that there were certain things present in areas that didn't have easy transportation, like the two things that come to mind are either like grandfather clocks or pianos. Like technically, yes, that could have existed just about anywhere out here, but up until railroads come in, it would have been highly unlikely, usually, that someone would have packed that up in a wagon. And
it cost an arm and a leg freight charges to get it there.
Exactly.
And it got there in one piece.
Almost literally, particularly with the fraught nature of that kind of a journey there.
And the thing is, what gets me is like, well, Silver City was built with permanency in mind. Shakespeare, Ralston City, Shakespeare was always a boom camp type mentality. Looking at the old photographs, compared to other towns, hey, you see the adobe buildings, they're always stucco, Shakespeare, all the buildings are always raw. I mean, even there's a picture of the hotel in 1879 when it was just remodeled. You still see the rock and the adobes, because adobe, you use whatever you have handy for your binding material.
It's a material utility.
Donkey Dong and Socorro, cut grass and hay and San Eli. Shakespeare didn't have grass. They had other things to use the horse pies for. So they used rock because you get plenty of it.
Yeah. So this isn't the hotel you were talking about here.
This is the
picture.
Grand House Stage Station.
So it's again the utility of the building. Right. Obviously, the focus here, as opposed to say architectural beauty.
Right. It was always And on the next ridge over, you would have seen the foundations. A lot of those were just basically that was the tent city.
Mhm. And the tent is an interesting term there because it may have been just literally canvas walled, but then there may have been some built up around it.
Well, you would build a foundation,
Mhm.
and sometimes maybe up to maybe about 2 or 3 feet, just provide like a half wall. Then the other half was, the tent and the canvas to cover, and that was it.
So kind of like a weird, from the modern standpoint anyway, a weird hybrid, like a combination, the strange love child of a tent and a small house, essentially.
Yep, exactly it. And even then, the houses back then, if you look at them, you look at the foundations, you got basically it was 1, maybe 2 rooms, big enough for a bed, a table, a chair, and there's a small fireplace.
And rooms is maybe stretching the definition here because actual walls and divide between it may not have, particularly on this size and scale, actually existed.
Well, just think of the typical apartment in El Paso. And you got just a living room,
Mhm.
then you got a closet. That's about all you had to have there.
Yeah.
I mean, and we ain't talking about a king size bed. We're talking about, hey, a full would be pushing it.
That's very true. Or a twin, or maybe smaller, or however you can best shape your pile of hay.
Yeah.
And anything advancement from there is just bonus.
Right. There was most of the foundations, and even for the one merchant's house, his was a true room. Except there, the main room was about 15 by 15, and the second room was maybe 8 by 8. That was probably storage.
Probably there. So we're talking a lot about the foundations of the story we're going to talk about of the Shakespeare ghost town, and of course what that means in terms of the development of this region and what could have been the story of places even like El Paso if not for other intervening events here. So we got a lot of people chiming in with us over on the social media. Barbara Given-Bainey chiming in from Remember in El Paso, when we do appreciate their work and support on history in El Paso. Rose Rodriguez chiming in from El Paso. Angie Salazar from Pueblo, West Colorado, I should say. Larry Kendrick up in Las Cruces. Rick Nahara also chiming in from the Remember in El Paso when Page. Robert Haynes as well. Maria Gonzalez chiming in from Houston, Texas. And Robert Haynes mentioning here that New Mexico Highway 9 is a more scenic route to Shakespeare and follows the old Smelter Railroad route. So we were talking about I-10 more or less in the idea of, where you can see those offshoots and what may be the remnants of this kind of similar history. But Highway 9 is a very good drive. I will agree with you there, as long as you avoid the Border Patrol and don't get in their way, going out that way.
Stop on that road between Santa Teresa and Columbus.
Yeah, that would be a good bit of advice there. I'll agree with here. But tell you what, we got to take the first break of the hour here right now. And so we are joined here, of course, in studio by Keith Wilden, historian with the town of Shakespeare, and might be joined by phone here in a bit by someone actually on site there. But we'll check in with them here in this break and come back with you. So stay tuned with more on the El Paso History Radio Show here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant and Cantina serves the old Griggs Mexican food recipes in a new location at 6761 Donovan Drive. Enjoy great New Mexican food with cold beer and the Juan and only margarita from the cantina. The managers and cooks from the original Griggs restaurant serve tacos, combination plates, and sopapillas. Get the best Mexican food in the valley at Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant and Cantina, 6761 Donovan, near Loop 375. Call 877-2152.
Many retired El Paso area homeowners don't know where to begin when it comes to downsizing and selling their home. Patrick Tuttle and his Legacy Home team follow a proven process to help retired homeowners sell faster and for more money. Call Patrick Tuttle at 915-588-1850 today and get your home sold faster and for more money. That's Patrick Tuttle at 915-588-1850. Call him today.
Come celebrate the magic behind women-owned businesses at the 18th Annual International Women's Business Symposium, Dancing Backwards in High Heels. Hear from the women leading the charge in the business world. Recognize women entrepreneurs for their success. Get a free professional headshot provided by New American Funding. And stop by the Dior and Foliage Day Spa Beauty Corner. Breakfast, lunch, and closing reception are included. So be sure to join us on Thursday, June 23rd at the Hotel Paso del Norte for an exceptional in-person experience. Tickets by calling 566-4066. Join Brian Birds of the Brian Birds Home Selling Team every Sunday morning at 7:30 a.m. for real estate tips with Brian. The best in El Paso when it comes to selling. Brian is an expert in real estate. Listen every Sunday from 7:30 a.m. to 8 a.m. on KTSM AM 690 for tips on buying or selling your home, info on what's going on in the market today, and much, much more. Real estate tips with Brian every Sunday morning at 7:30 on KTSM AM 690.
When I tested positive for COVID, I didn't know what to do at first. Then I learned about the Active 6 research study. I enrolled in the study from the comfort of home. Study medications were shipped to me, and I took surveys online. I hope this research will help find treatment options so my family and others in my community can stay safe and healthy.
More research is needed to help people with COVID-19. Learn how you can take part in research to help protect the health of your family and community. Visit active6study.org/radio. That's activ6study.org/radio.
At Mesa Street Grill, celebrating is what we do best. Let us help you plan the event of your dreams. Our events coordinator will take care of everything from design, decor, live music, customized menus, and all the details in between. Mesa Street Grill wants to be here for all of your special moments. Call 915-532-1881 or email events@mesastreetgrill.com. We believe every day is worth celebrating. Inquire about our Mesa Street Grill event packages today.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
And now, let's turn back the pages of time and return to the El Paso History Radio Show. Brought to you by Patrick Tuttle, Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate, 915-588-1850. Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant, 6761 Donovan Drive. By M1 EP Management Corporation, 915-592-4549. By Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Lee Trevino, with El Paso souvenirs, decor, and gift shopping. Here again, El Paso History with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for the El Paso History Radio Show, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. Mention some of those places that we are up on social media. We are, of course, the El Paso History Radio Show on Facebook. You can go there. Make sure to follow us and be updated on our weekly announcements on upcoming show topics. We'll talk about the next one a little bit later in this program. And also, again, the YouTube channel, youtube.com/El Paso History TV, where you can find the El Paso Gold DVD series from Capstone Production, covering more than 20 years of history production here in town on a variety of subjects, including similar to what we're talking about here today, but not exactly. So if you want to see those, and of course, the more recent segments that we produce for KVIA TV, they're all over there, as well as the archive of this program. A lot of reasons to go and check all of that out. And of course, a reminder to support some of our advertisers. Pepe's Restaurant in Canutillo is open for in-house dining at 6761 Donovan Drive. You can call Pepe's at 915-877-2152. That's 915-877-2152 to find out their hours and availability, place orders to go, or even just make sure you got the right place in mind and head over there, because they are, of course, the home of the one and only margarita. Or joined here in studio by Keith Wilden, historian with the town of Shakespeare in New Mexico. And, we'll be heading out that way a little bit later. Think you'll be able to join us out there at Pepe's?
We'll see, but I got you. Put it past the boss first. You know how that goes.
Fair enough here. So not exactly, well, I guess it could be kind of thought of on the way out too, if you're taking a slower route to Shakespeare. Technically, strictly speaking, again, popping up that map here again, because it's a useful demonstrative tool of what we're talking about. You got El Paso again, and you see the go on the map there. And then sure, Highway 9, as Robert Haynes mentioned, is a better, more scenic way to get out there, but for ease of accessibility for anyone thinking about making the trek, it's right off I-10, right when you get just south of Lordsburg there. But speaking actually from the site here, we actually do have a man on the line here that is on site right now. We do have Rodney Lincus out in Shakespeare this morning. Rodney, thank you very much for joining us here today.
Well, thank you for having me on. I've got three folks from Florida that'd like to say hi. Go ahead, folks. We're right in the middle of a tour, and they didn't mind me talking to y'all.
Oh, fantastic here. So you are out there today, and I guess it's something we should have gotten to in first segment. But in the meantime, what is it that you all are doing out there as of this moment and do pretty regularly?
Well, Keith and I come out here switching off on months, 1 weekend a month, kind of help Dave and Gina with the place and give them a break from doing the tours. But we start tours anywhere from 9 to 10 in the morning, and they go until about 4 o'clock. You get here, call up at the gate, or one of us sees you, and then we take you on the tour.
We have a picture up on screen right now of Keith, you doing one of the previous tours here. So what's it like out there today, Rod?
It's about 93. It's supposed to hit about 101, 103. There is a slight breeze, sunny, and it's going to be a good day for it. It's only about 2.5 hour drive from El Paso.
Yep, Lordsburg is, again, depending on the route you take. If you take the more scenic one, could add a few minutes to that. But the idea of it being more or less accessible, and again, just south of Lordsburg, if people are wanting to come out there, is there any advice to give them on how to make sure to find the right place and the right entrance?
Well, on I-10, you get off at exit 22, the main street where McDonald's is, and then head south. Turn under the freeway and head south about 1.5 miles, and then turn right at the sign, come down about 3/4 of a mile, make another right, and you'll end up at Shakespeare.
So when people are arriving there, we've popped up some pictures of a general look to the town, but what should they be looking for, and what will they be seeing, particularly as they then get on the tour?
Well, they'll be seeing 5 different buildings dating back to 1856. They'll hear some of the stories of the town and basically have a good time here. Keith can tell you more about it since he's there, but I've got to get on with the tour in a minute, so we'll have to have him do it.
Absolutely, and we're coming up on the need for that next break right now, so hopefully we can check in with you a little bit later in the second hour of the program here. But again, Rodney Lincus joining us by phone from Shakespeare Town, which lets you know that it also does have good cell signal.
Okay, talk to you all later.
All right, thanks a lot there, Rod. Appreciate it. Good luck with the tour and everyone out there. Thanks for joining us as well. So, I mean, again, the accessibility and the interest there going on to it. Tell you what, we again joined here in studio with Keith Wilden, historian with the town of Shakespeare. We're going to talk more about what y'all are doing out there, what are some of the purposes you find with it, as well as delving into the history. But we got to take that next break right now.
Right.
So we'll be back right after that with more on the El Paso History Radio Show here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
M1 EP Management Corporation is proud to sponsor the El Paso History Show. If you're tired of the ups and downs of the stock market, invest in real estate. M1 EP manages apartments in El Paso and helps investors buy, hold, and sell property. See the website, m1ep.com, m1ep.com. To learn more about the many benefits and long-term appreciation of investing in real estate, call 915-592-4549, 915-592-4549. El Paso History TV is now available for free on YouTube.com. Take a look at recent ABC7 news reports by Bernie Sargent on El Paso History TV about Waco tanks, the Franklin Mountains, Concordia Cemetery, and more. The YouTube channel also has more than 100 videos about El Paso history with lectures, documentaries, and various history clips. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV and find out how Texas history begins in El Paso.
What's all the buzz about cleaning your nose, nasal hygiene, and navage? The science is simple. Your nose is the body's air filter for trapping allergens and viruses, but it's not perfect. Like washing your hands and brushing your teeth, it's time to start cleaning your nose too. Navage uses powered suction to pull saline in one nostril to the back of the nose where most germs and viruses multiply, then flushes them out the other nostril before they reach your lungs. My name's Martin Hoke, and I didn't invent nasal irrigation. It's been around thousands of years. I did invent Navage to make it easy for everyone. In less than 30 seconds, you can clean your nose. And because it's all natural and drug-free, it's safe to use Navage every single day. Are you ready to join nearly 3 million people who use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier? At Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E. Clean nose, healthy life.
Diabetes, high blood pressure, anxiety meds, everyone's on them. If you're a 50-year-old male, maybe a bit porky, and you may even have type 2 diabetes, $1 million of term insurance may only cost you about $200 a month. Call Term Provider. Speak with Big Lou at 800-777-1225. Big Lou will find a term life policy for you even if you have type 2 diabetes, are overweight, or have high blood pressure. Term Provider has helped thousands of people like you who think they can't afford term life insurance to buy $1 million of affordable term life for you. All you need to do is call Big Lou at 800-777-1225. Lou will make sure the scales are tipped in your favor. Call 800-777-1225. Big Lou will answer your call and work to fit you into a term life policy that you can afford. Remember, Big Lou's like you. He's on meds, too. Call 800-777-1225. 800-777-1225.
The uh-ohs are out there. Scratches, dents, unexpected natural events. But with Mako and their magic, your car is no longer tragic. So when life throws you uh-ohs, just say, better get Mako. And go to Mako.com to book your appointment today.
Uh-oh, Brad's buzzed. Oh, yeah? Yeah, he's starting with the woots. Good thing is, he knows when he's buzzed.
Know your buzzed warning signs? Call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
If you have a small business, Staples has your sign.
Banners for my bakery?
Staples has your sign.
Oh, posters for my new pet store.
Floor decals for a pharmacy.
Every day, Staples associates help every kind of small business create bold signs to make big impressions. And now get $10 off custom signs, banners, and posters when you spend $50 or more. This is your sign, so print it big at Staples. N72. Visit staplesconnect.com/thisisyoursign for details.
Are you ready for summer? Wherever summer takes you, make sure you take your favorite radio station with you on your adventures with the free iHeartRadio app. That's right, no matter how far from home you travel, this station, the music you love, and the best podcasts in the world will be right there with you in your pocket.
Summer soundtrack.
Sunscreen, flip-flops, and the free iHeart app. Must-haves for any summer checklist. Download the free iHeartRadio app and discover music, radio, and podcasts you'll love this summer.
iHeartRadio. News Radio 690 KTSM.
And now, let's turn back the pages of time and return to the El Paso History Radio Show. Brought to you by Patrick Tuttle, Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate. 915-588-1850. Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant, 6761 Donovan Drive. By M1 EP Management Corporation, 915-592-4549. By Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Lee Trevino, with El Paso souvenirs, decor, and gift shopping. Here again, El Paso History with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for the El Paso History Radio Show, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Got to talk about some of our great partners in history and promoting local events in our region. Of course, make sure to check out celebrationsofourmountains.org. The Celebration of Our Mountains group does a lot of great work in helping to expose people to not even just the features and history of the area, but the natural history, some of the more modern parts of it. Specifically, they've got an event going on today. Actually, they were doing a tour up at the Sunspot Observatory. So if you missed out on that one, they've got a whole calendar of events here, including particularly coming up on Thursday, June 16th of this coming week. They're going to be touring the K. Bailey Hutchinson Desalinization Plant and the Tech H2O Center. That'll be from 10 a.m. to about midday there. To touring the K. Bailey Hutchinson Desalinization Plant and learn how the plant uses reverse osmosis to transform brackish water into fresh drinking water. The world's largest inland desalinization plant, KBH uses a pressurized process by which raw water passes through fine membranes that separate salts and other contaminants away from the water, thus producing fresh, drinkable water. Discover how El Paso Water is ensuring the availability of water for El Paso into the distant future, as well as helping El Paso to conserve our most precious commodity, water. After touring the plant, take a guided tour of the Tech H2O Center exhibits, great for kids, students, and adults. So again, for the information on that, go visit them over at Celebration of Our Mountains. That's celebrationofourmountains.org. And look for the upcoming events and such here. Again, joined here in studio by Keith Wilden, historian with the town of Shakespeare, as we're discussing the ghost town that exists out there, as well as the history implications that it has in our area. So we have a couple more people joining us from other reaches of the country here. Mary Miranda from Long Beach, California, and Jeff Collins from North Central Ohio. Thank you very much for chiming in over there. Of course, welcome to do so over on our social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. But we, of course, were joined right before the break by Rodney Lincus, who was out there calling in via phone at the Shakespeare Ghost Town. So that's a finer point to make here, that people can go out and see this. It's not just something to necessarily even do I know urban exploration. It might be a little bit of a stretch of a term for a site like this, but it's gotten its own level of popularity. But this is something that where it's guided and you can be shown everything.
Right. We're really lucky in some respects. Manny Hogue, the owner of the town, passed away in May of 2018. His daughter, Gina, and her husband, Dave Oceanbine, took over the town. They hit town in November. Poor Dave hasn't had a rest since. Used to be because of Manny's health, plus also it was still a working cattle ranch.
Oh, okay.
We used to only do the tours once a month. And if you didn't make it that weekend, well, unfortunately, we were too busy. Everybody was too busy, working cows and everything else. It just weren't able to do it. Dave has opened it up. So now, hey, 7 days a week from 10 until 4. If you're heading from El Paso specifically to go out to Shakespeare, I would recommend you call him ahead of time. Just make sure he is available.
Yeah, and of course, there's information that people can find on this because the Shakespeare Ghost Town actually, in the full 21st century now, there is ShakespeareGhostTown.com.
Right.
People can go to find out more information, the routes, all that kind of stuff here, as well as, again, the contact information to make sure you know that it's not a lack of coverage weekend. But as you're kind of mentioning there, it's very available these days.
It's very available. It's one of the dreams that, if I could have supported myself, I would have been out there in 2005.
Okay.
Unfortunately, hey, I have this nasty need to actually eat once in a while. So
eat, pay rent, sleep occasionally. Yeah, just those ever so standard
before
needs.
I got civilized, I could have just thrown my bedroll out there, but I would have been happy. But the eating thing was important.
Yeah, I can see that.
Anyway, since then it's like, okay, we still have folks from all over the world. They'll set their call and come in there. Hey, if I go up there, when I'm up there, if I don't have at least one group of Europeans of some flavor or another, it's a surprise.
Really? Okay, so it's popular, and so you were mentioning a little bit before that you and Rodney Lincus, as we had call in, alternate your times out there, but that otherwise, even beyond that, it is available almost. By appointment would be nice, but almost every day of the week.
Yeah, if you're cruising through there and you do want to just swing by, and like I said, if Dave's available, he'll give you the tour. He starts about 10 in the morning. He'll stop taking folks about 4 o'clock, only because, hey, that way he gives them a chance to actually finish up the tour before it gets dark. Then give him a chance to actually eat dinner, because sometimes he doesn't get a chance to eat lunch because it's nonstop. It's just him out there, doing the tours, and we go up there out of tradition from back in the bad old days when it was just 1 weekend a month.
Right.
And when Manny was really sick of me and Rod would actually do all the tours, then we kept it up just to give him a break.
Fair enough here. So people get shown through the different buildings of the town. So again, Rodney mentioned a little bit there, but we have, again, some decent views of the kind of, again, from the website. This is over from, you can see these and more on ShakespeareGhostTown.com.
Now, this one is looking at the old mail station. That's with the front right, front left. Then that taller 2-story building you see on the right is the old Stratford Hotel.
Okay.
And the building there, the left hand of the side of the mail station is the oldest structure still standing on the property. It was built by the Army in 1856.
1856 is when we're dating
that
this.
That was an old military mail station.
Okay.
Again, one of the alternating supply routes along the Cook's Wagon Road to guard the 49ers.
Okay.
And plus, also, this one is actually the military mail connected to forts outside of Mesilla and Las Cruces with the forts outside of Tucson. And basically, just think of it as a slow pony express. They're carrying dispatches and orders between the forts. Of course, when the telegraph came in, it was rendered obsolete, so they didn't need it anymore. My joke with Channel Lou is once the Army abandoned the building, I think it only took about 20 minutes before somebody moved in and made it a home. But they built that one in 56. They added the second room in 58. And of course, that spring was the main reason why they built it.
Right. Again, spring availability, sustainment of life, ever so slightly important, as we were talking about there in this region. But one of the reasons we're actually talking about this here today is we also have Alice Ponskook joining us over from Phoenix. Maybe not the Probably about a little bit further than equidistant on the other side of this to drive from out there. So we're not showing it on the map there. But yeah, as long as you're heading out on I-10, particularly from Phoenix, might be a better way to go on I-10 there. But the reason we're talking about this town right here today is that we're actually just past an important anniversary of the further development of the town. June 5th was its own level of importance in the continued evolution of this town. What does that signify for the town?
I call that the birthday of Shakespeare.
Okay.
Now, the first mining boom ran from 1869 up until about 1872. Now, those initial strikes for all surface pockets of low-grade ore.
Okay.
And, of course, the price of silver at the time, as they started to pay out, it wasn't worthwhile to sink a shaft to follow the veins into the mountains.
So when we're talking about surface pockets, we're talking about something that...
Of silver ore. Yeah, so it's like, okay, it was, kind of basically a bubble, but hey, the veins further down at that time wasn't worthwhile to sink the shaft to follow it.
And it may sound a little bit weird from the modern standpoint because at this point in history and modernly, anything that is very easily exploitable usually has been. So the idea that you could just walk along and say, oh, hey, there's some silver may seem very foreign from, again, the modern standpoint, but that's what we're talking about at that point in time.
Now, this is where history gets murky because I got to go by the oral traditions as opposed to the book.
Of course.
But somehow or another, we were involved in the diamond hoax of 1872.
Okay.
Now, I think a lot of it came from the fact is that a lot of the guilty parties up north were, King actually pointed out to the field, actually owned mining claims down there in Ralston City.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking this either guilt by association, but there were old timers swear up and down that there were raw diamonds seated at the in the ant beds at the sharp peak there to the south of the town called Lee's Peak.
So when you're saying seeding, the idea is that essentially may actually be some material put there to then come and show someone as a way to say that
plant them around those ant beds, make it look like the ants had brought the stones out of the mountain as they were digging their burrows in, and they would bring in investors and hey, see. And of course, once fraud was exposed, that's when the whole thing collapsed, and Ralston City became pretty much a ghost town. The general store was still there, the stage station was still there because the stages still ran. The general merchandise, they were selling supplies to the local ranchers, to include two families you might have heard of.
Oh, really?
An old man from Ohio with his sons by the name of Numi and Clanton.
Oh, okay.
And two brothers by the name of McLowry.
Oh, yeah.
The original ranches in that area were only about 35 miles southeast of there, outside of Skull Canyon.
So, I mean, there's, again, it continued existence in a way here, but the actual nature of the town itself as being a draw kind of waxed and waned on both the availability of the material to be mined, but then also on what people thought might be available there, which is why we have this June 5th date of the reestablishment of Shakespeare proper, because they had to deal with that part of Ralston City you're talking about.
In 79, of course, you got all the fuss over there at Tombstone. The price of silver is up. So now it's worthwhile to actually work those old mining claims. Well, an English mining engineer by the name of William G. Boyle owned a couple of more promising claims. He got with a group of folks in St. Louis. They formed the Shakespeare Gold, Silver Milling and Mining Company. They established it on the 5th of June of 1879. They wanted to use Ralston City as their base camp, but because of the taint of the scandal, he couldn't use that name. So him being an Englishman and being fond of the bard, Main Street became Avon. Main Street, named the camp Shakespeare. The Main Street became Avon Avenue.
Right.
Now, the man had a wicked sense of humor, though. The hotel became the Stratford.
Stratford upon Avon.
You got it.
Of course. And so this is technically the view down Avon in the town of Shakespeare.
Down Avon Avenue from the south looking north. Of course, you got the Grant House on the left. That taller building behind it's the Stratford. Over to the right, you see the blacksmith shop and the assay office. And down back behind the assay office would have been the mail station.
So we've charted a bit of the history of Shakespeare Ghost Town as well as mildly the region so far here. But the, of course, continued evolution and demand and eventual abandonment will continue on from here. So we got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll close out this hour, get into the next one and talk more about how this history can be written a little bit more large on how, again, this whole region developed, not necessarily with scams, but not excluding them either.
Yeah.
So we'll be back after this next break on the El Paso History Radio Show here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant and Cantina serves the old Griggs Mexican food recipes in a new location at 6761 Donovan Drive. Enjoy great New Mexican food with cold beer and the Juan and only margarita from the cantina. The managers and cooks from the original Griggs restaurant serve tacos, combination plates, and sopapillas. Get the best Mexican food in the valley at Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant and Cantina, 6761 Donovan, near Loop 375. Call 877-2152.
M1EP.com, superior multifamily property management services citywide.
The king of the jungle is surveying his domain. A crowd of hyenas has gathered nearby. He's putting on a guitar.
Take a rock on the wild side at Rock and Roar Music Festival. Rock and Roar Music Festival is July 2nd at the El Paso Zoo with 35 acres and 2 stages of music. This all-ages event includes a silent disco, arcade games, food and beer, and much more. For tickets, visit elpasozoosociety.org. Rock and Roar Music Festival, having a roaring good time.
Tune in to the El Paso History Radio Show this Saturday, 10 to noon, here on 690 AM with your host, Andrew J. Polk, brought to you in part by Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant and Cantina, 6761 Donovan Drive. That's the El Paso History Radio Show, 10 a.m. Saturday, right here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Are you a safe driver? Are you looking to save money? With DriveWise from Allstate, the safer you drive, the more you can save. At Allstate, better protection costs a whole lot less. Visit allstate.com or call an agent for a quote today.
We first opened about 10 years ago. We were small, just a few of us, but it was exciting. I always dreamt of having my own business. It was kind of slow at first, but things started picking up. We had big plans, but in our wildest dreams, we never thought we'd have this much work. Yeah, with so many businesses caught off guard by the storm, Reed Waste Management has never been busier.
What will become of your business after a disaster? Nearly 2/3 of businesses aren't prepared for an emergency, and 40% of businesses that experience a disaster never recover. Make an emergency plan now, before it's too late. For a free online tool that helps you develop an emergency plan to keep your business up and running should disaster strike, visit ready.gov/business. Brought to you by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, the American Red Cross, and the Ad Council.
City streets or small towns, everyone deserves a clean, green community. We are Keep America Beautiful, the nonprofit working to end littering, improve recycling, and beautify communities. Let's do beautiful things. Visit KAB.org.
Stay informed at KTSMradio.com. News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
And now, let's turn back the pages of time and return to the El Paso History Radio Show. Brought to you by Patrick Tuttle, Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate, 915-588-1850. Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant, 6761 Donovan Drive. By M1 EP Management Corporation, 915-592-4549. By Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Lee Trevino, with El Paso souvenirs, decor, and gift shopping. Here again, El Paso History with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for the El Paso History Radio Show, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I want to mention some of our other great partners in local history, talking about other specific aspects of it and beyond. Go and make sure to check out talkandrockradio.com with Rick Kern's music podcast, talking about both local production of music and even into the modern day, but also a lot of the great bands coming through and even sourced from right here in town. So again, talkandrockradio.com is the place to go and check them out here. But of course, also have to remind you about some of our friends in history there, even if we're getting a little bit maybe just put it on the floor there for now. Got a little bit of echo going on here, live radio as it happens. But of course, our friends at Monterey Asset Management have changed their name to M1EP Management Corporation. Their website, m1ep.com. That's m1ep.com. If you're sick and tired of investing in the stock market, consider investing in real estate instead. Monterey Asset Management, again, M1EP.com, as it is now known, can help you buy, sell, invest, and do property management for you. So find them, again, M1EP.com and 915-592-4549. And you may have heard that source of noise over there is, of course, Keith Wilden, historian with the town of Shakespeare. We've covered some ground, but we've only really begun to scratch the surface on the history of the town, as well as the history of the Southwest here, because we've talked a little bit about how these settlements kind of dotted the area and were, to a more greater or lesser extent, depending on the specific location, utilitarian in nature. They were there because of the needs that the area was putting onto it. Right. And in this case, we saw the boom of it up to about that 3,000 mark you mentioned because of what was being extracted from the area. Because you mentioned even up till modern times, there was ranching in the area, but the difference between that and what a town actually needs is that is a very spread out need. And they might come to a central location, but not necessarily picky about which central location that will be, as long as it meets their needs. So if the town had a justification to be there otherwise, I mean, we've got other, ranching settlements, I guess you could say, but this one primarily focused around the mining is why it had such booms and busts.
Right. Like I said, we had over 3,000 during the first boom. Of course, after the swindle, hey, maybe a handful of folks still living in town because, hey, stages were still running. Store was making money selling to the ranchers. The second boom, of course, in 79, this one wasn't near as big as the first one. We only had about 750 people there. Now, this time around, though, we had more families.
Okay.
As Jan Lou used to point out, sometimes she thought that, looking at the history, the families probably might not have been a good thing for the community because we had a few lynchings all because of the families.
Okay.
But we still never had a dedicated church. We never had a dedicated school.
Okay.
And as my running joke is, hey, in 1882, they decided to hire a town constable, but it took until me buying the badge in 2002 before it went anywhere forward.
Frontier justice, in I guess a way, would have been the real major part of it out there. But tell you what, we'll get into more on that and how this development exemplifies more of what happened in the region and what could have been the fate of, well, even closer to El Paso County or the town of El Paso itself if it weren't for other things coming in here. So we've talked about a little bit of the currents of history, and we'll get to more of it here after this next break here on the El Paso History Radio Show. So we'll be back right after here, more on the top of the hour news after this here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Thank you for listening to the El Paso History Radio Show. There's another hour to go, so please stay tuned. This hour is brought to you by Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant, home of the Juan and only Margarita, by Patrick Tuttle, Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate, 915-588-1850, by M1EP Management Corporation, 915-592-4549, by Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Lee Trevino, with El Paso souvenirs, decor, and gift shopping. We'll be right back after the news, right here on News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Hey El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager of Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. We make car buying fast, fun, and easy. And due to high demand, we need trades. So we'll do whatever it takes to get you out of your old vehicle into a new car, truck, or SUV today.
Even if you owe thousands more than your trade is worth, we want it, so you can get huge savings on every new and certified pre-owned vehicle in our huge inventory. For a limited time, get $4,000 off MSRP on the all-new 2022 full-size Wagoneer SUV with third-row seating and up to $7,000 off select new Ram trucks. Super low 2.9% APR for 72 months on the all-new 2022 Dodge Charger. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Trade and upgrade for less during the Make the Switch event at Sunland Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is fun. At I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. 2.9% APR is $15.15 per thousand finance. On select vehicles. 0 down with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Talk El Paso, weekdays at 4 on News Radio 690 KTSM, breaking down the impact of the news on the borderland and beyond. Brought to you in part by Mission Del Rey Southwest, souvenirs, gifts, and decor. That's Talk El Paso, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Hey folks, this is Andrew J. Polk, and I love supporting local and experiencing all the world has to offer, which is why I love Enhanced Flavors, your local source of over 40 quality flavored olive oils and balsamic vinegars. You don't have to scour the globe or even leave home to taste all that's offered in extra virgin olive oil and great flavored varieties from Italy, Greece, Spain, and Tunisia, and certified balsamic vinegar straight from the Modena province of Italy. Look for Enhanced Flavors at your favorite farmers markets to spice up your life, or find them online at enhancedflavors.com.
NBC News Radio, I'm Julie Ryan. Thousands are gathering in Washington, D.C. for today's march and rally on the National Mall to demand new gun legislation. The March for Our Lives comes after multiple mass shootings have killed dozens of people across the U.S. recently, including this week at a machine shop in Smithsburg, Maryland. The march will begin at the Washington Monument starting at noon. President Biden is again blaming soaring inflation on global events, including Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Today's inflation report confirmed what Americans already know. Putin's price hike is hitting America hard.
The latest Consumer Price Index, or CPI, report shows inflation rose 8.6% in May. The figure was driven by food, energy, and housing prices. In a statement, Biden reiterated that fighting inflation is his top domestic priority. The May CPI represents the largest year-over-year increase since 1981. A former editor for Fox News is being called to testify next week before the January 6th panel. Jim Forbes has the latest.
Chris Steyerwalt left the network after the 2020 presidential election. His testimony is now requested next week during the hearing before the House Select Committee. Steyerwalt, now a political editor for News Nation, said Friday that he wasn't in a position to say what his testimony would be about, but that he wanted to make sure he isn't playing any, quote, hidden ball tricks. He was part of the Fox News team that called Arizona for President Biden on election night, something that upset the Trump campaign and led to some top aides reportedly complaining to Fox News leaders about the decision to call it early.
Jurassic World Dominion is expected to pull in $125 million at the domestic box office in its opening weekend. The latest installment of the dinosaur-based franchise brought in $18 million on its first day. You're listening to the latest on NBC News Radio.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. A heat advisory remains in effect for El Paso and Las Cruces and cities in between, all until midnight Sunday, as temperatures will become dangerous here in the borderland, climbing at 104 to 107. Please be mindful of being outdoors for long periods of time. Take plenty of breaks and make sure you're staying hydrated during this time.
Our 2022 iHeartRadio Music Festival.
Friday, September 23rd and Saturday, September 24th.
T-Mobile Arena here in Las Vegas.
Keep listening to win your way there before you can even buy tickets.
On sale Friday, June 17th at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific.
But starting June 15th at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, Capital One cardholders can score tickets and other awesome experiences before anyone else for 48 hours only or while supplies last. Visit iHeartRadio.com/Capital One for more pre-sale details. What's in your wallet?
What's all the buzz about cleaning your nose, nasal hygiene, and navage? The science is simple. Your nose is the body's air filter for trapping allergens and viruses, but it's not perfect. Like washing your hands and brushing your teeth, it's time to start cleaning your nose too. Navage uses powered suction to pull saline in one nostril to the back of the nose where most germs and viruses multiply, then flushes them out the other nostril before they reach your lungs. My name's Martin Hoke, and I didn't invent nasal irrigation. It's been around thousands of years. I did invent Navage to make it easy for everyone. In less than 30 seconds, you can clean your nose. And because it's all natural and drug-free, it's safe to use Navage every single day. Are you ready to join nearly 3 million people who use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier? At Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage. Navage. Clean nose, healthy life.
Beautiful
top quality, long-lasting dental implants as low as $19.95 at 1995implants.com. The El Paso Dental Office, where implants are affordable. Other places charge $3, $4, $5, up to $6,000 per tooth. Please do not pay that much. Please do come to 1995implants.com, where our price is much lower, as low as $1,995 per tooth, including the implant, abutment, and crown, which many other places charge extra for. Plus, at 1995implants.com, we also offer a free consultation, free standard x-rays, and very convenient payment options. Now's the time to get rid of your cracked teeth, missing teeth, or loose, old, wobbly dentures and get the beautiful new smile that you want at a very affordable price. 1995implants.com. For more information, see our website, 1995implants.com. That's 1995implants.com. Se habla español.
M1EP.com. Superior multifamily property management services citywide.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
News Radio 690 KTSM presents the second hour of the El Paso History Radio Show with your host, Andrew J. Polk, streaming live at KTSMradio.com. Brought to you by Patrick Tuttle Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate, 915-588-1850. By Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant, home of the Juan and only Margarita. By M1 EP Management Corporation, 915-592-4549. By Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Lee Trevino, for El Paso souvenirs, decor, and gift shopping. And now El Paso History with your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for the El Paso History Radio Show, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. We have got a lot of ways that you can experience the show, as mentioned, some of them here. We are streaming on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, and over on our social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch.tv. Look for us, El Paso History, El Paso History Radio Show, El Paso History TV on all of those platforms. But of course, starting as we do the first part of hour two, we are going to be hearing from a history moment from documentary filmmaker Jackson Polk, talking today about Fusselman Canyon in the Franklin Mountains.
Trans Mountain Road was built through a natural fault in El Paso's Franklin Mountains. It follows Fusselman Canyon, which served for centuries as a natural corridor for the movement of people, goods, and livestock, legally and illegally, between the river valley to the west and the desert basin to the east. The canyon also served as a source of seasonal water, plants, and animals for the many Native Americans who inhabited the region. In the late 19th century, El Paso was a booming town, but outlying areas were still lawless. On April 17, 1890, local rancher John Barnes reported that his horses and cattle had been stolen. Later that day, Charles Fusselman was deputized and led Barnes and city police officer George Harold into the Franklin Mountains to chase the rustlers. The thieves intended to drive the horses and cattle through the canyon along the path of today's Woodrow Bean Trans Mountain Road, through Smuggler's Gap at the top of the canyon, and then into the Rio Grande Bosque near Cañutillo, Texas. Fusselman's party captured one of the rustlers before encountering the outlaws' camp. There they were met with a barrage of gunfire, and Fusselman was shot and killed. The outlaws escaped after the outnumbered Barnes and Harold left their prisoner and fled the scene. Fusselman's body was later recovered and taken to Lagarto, Texas, where he was buried. For the next 10 years, lawmen pursued the rustlers. The leader of the outlaw gang, Geronimo Parra, was finally arrested, tried, and convicted of Fusselman's murder. He was hanged in January 1900 in El Paso. The canyon was named in honor of Charles Fusselman, the Texas Ranger and U.S. Deputy Marshal who was killed there in 1890. I'm Jackson Polk with this history moment for the El Paso History Radio Show.
And of course, we do have to appreciate those who are again our partners in talking about local history, including, of course, those over at the great Facebook page, Remember in El Paso When, run, of course, by Barbara Given Bainey, known affectionately as BGB. Of course, Remember in El Paso When, you can find it on Facebook, and they have more than 33,000 members at last check. Probably should do a further check here to see what they're actually at. We've been saying that number for a minute, but in any case, the way that they put their history forth and then do some very good research into it is a great resource. Just make sure if you're using any of their resources that you are, among other things, giving them credit. And of course, much credit to be given to them in terms of, again, Chief Admin, Owner, and Historian Barbara Given Bainey. Edmonds, Rick Duncan, Rick Nahara, Margaret D. Smith, and Paul Louie. And, of course, moderators Ben Vincent and Al Lowe. They're always looking for a little bit of extra assistance with that because managing those 33,000 plus members is quite the full time to make sure it stays. Noise to signal ratio is another way to think about it here, making sure it stays quality there as we have a lot more content and input coming in with us here today. Again, joined here in studio by Keith Wilden, historian with the ghost town of Shakespeare, New Mexico, but of course chiming in with us online as well. We have a couple of comments that came in. Dale Hanson II, good morning from Schertz, Texas, and Angie Salazar, wishing Jackson Polk a good morning as well. And a lot of people chiming in from all over parts of the country here. We have North Central Ohio mentioned before, Long Beach, California, Houston, Texas, Las Cruces, Pueblo, Colorado, and I want to say there may have been one other East Coast one that maybe I'm missing here. But in case you want to leave your comments over on the social media, you're more than welcome to throughout the program. And of course, one more sponsor of the show we have to mention here, Patrick Tuttle, Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate. Give him a call at 915-588-1850. That's 915-588-1850. Patrick is an excellent realtor, does a lot of great work for our family, particularly, so you can go to him for El Paso homes for sale or rent. Again, 915-588-1850. So, Keith, we were talking a little bit, of course, there, the history moment, talking about Fusselman Canyon, and that is an 1890s incident, and it's actually appropriate with the time period as well, because among other things, we have that map that people may have seen from around town. So this is a quote-unquote aerial view of El Paso from, sure, it's the perspective, even though if they were airborne at that point in time, I guess they could have technically done a balloon, but I don't think so. Would have been likely. This was the land of what was the city of El Paso at that point in time. One of the common misconceptions about this map is that, no, it wasn't only inhabited by the buildings you see. More or less all the grids were occupied, but the way these kind of map drawings worked is that, well, they'd only put your house into it if you were willing to pay the map maker to it. So if you were important enough, thought you were important enough, etc., you'd end up in there. But so this is from 1886 in El Paso, and the comparison could be made to, of course, the town of Shakespeare at that time, because there would have been similar-ish levels of actual occupancy of the town.
Roger. Thing is, let's face it, May of 1881 was kind of the critical turning point in El Paso.
Yep, because as you note on this map here, you see at the bottom reach of it right near the river there, and then about midway through, if you can find Main Street on that or on your own copy of it, that little ever so important contraption known as the railroad.
Right. Let's face it, in 1873 we incorporated.
Mm-hmm.
We got bored and things kind of shut down in 76 with the depression that happened then.
All right.
And nobody was really interested in getting going again until the Southern Pacific was starting to get within striking range. And all of a sudden, 1880, everybody decided, hey, we might want to become a city again.
Yeah. Again, there's a lot of like bifurcation of history you can think of before and after a certain moment, but right. A truly, it's your arrival of Europeans in the region, certainly very important before and after moment. More modernly, the canalization of the Rio Grande and the development of Elephant Butte, changing how flooding happened in the area, very important before and after, but probably pound for pound, so to speak, one of the major differences was the arrival of the railroad. And you can really look at serious differences in eras before and after. Like, sure, there was inhabitation, farming, larger things going on in the region, the Mission Trail development, all of that, but the railroads is truly when you can point to modern history, at least
Correct.
Immediately pre-modern history beginning there, because without that, well, El Paso could have gone, well, the route of other places like Shakespeare. Potentially.
Not quite as drastically, but yeah.
Maybe not. there was reason that there was habitation here
more
already.
Like Laredo instead of El Paso.
Exactly, because that's, the ways that things continue to develop, the availability of actually transit, and the reason that a lot of Shakespeare is a case in point of a lot of smaller mining operations, towns out there, copper, of course, once you get a little bit closer out there to Arizona, as we also have Daniel Lehman tuning in from Tucson there, Arizona representing well here today in our comment section. The what was it, the Copper Queen or the Copper Skyrocket in the areas it was sometimes called, a lot of the reasons that we had, well, among other things, those smokestacks that came down, anniversary having passed us here recently in April, it was because a lot of that was then being transited to this area because of the railroads.
The railroad didn't arrive to just north of Shakespeare until November of 1880. They had their railroad first, but because of the terrain, they built it down the Plias, the valley north of it.
Mm-hmm.
They built up their section town called Lordsburg, and some business shifted over there because it was closer to the railroad.
Mm-hmm.
But Shakespeare was still the predominant one up until the later 80s when things are starting to slow down at the mines.
Right. So, I mean, like looking at the terrain here around the picture from the website, ShakespeareGhostTown.com, you can see that, like, sure, the town relatively flat, but surrounded by some not exactly aggressive
It's some
terrain.
kind of a little bit of a bowl.
Yeah.
And like I said, then just north of it, you get that wide open Plias where I-10 is, the railroads are, and it was just easier to build everything out there.
And particularly when it comes to railroads, I mean, traction may be something we think about with vehicles, but literally, I mean, all railroads do is they rely on friction with the rail itself. I mean, it's a smooth rail, and so it's the weight of the train itself putting it on the wheels. So that's why once you don't see a whole lot of railroads doing super steep grades, because just the physics breaks down after a bit. It doesn't work that well, which is why in even some regions these days in our area, if you're driving by I-10, you may have the railroad right by you for a good section of it, particularly if you head out, north or even west to a certain extent from here. But then you might notice at certain points, particularly if you're going uphill or even downhill, the railroad will split off from there because as it was laid out originally, avoiding steep grades. Like you'll eventually have to navigate them, but making sure you're not in the most severe part of it would be both safety concerns, logistical concerns, laying it out would have been easier. And then just even the fuel over the centuries at this point, the savings in that would have been significant. And they were thinking about that back then.
They were, because, hey, it was all about profit.
Mm-hmm. Oh, exactly. And so if it can be done more cheaply, more efficiently, those tend to be the kind of words that the people paying for this like to hear.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So, all you investors, hey, how am I going to get my return? Well, hey, most of your overheads, fuel getting up that mountain is to dig a hole through the mountain.
Yep, there's a reason that they would put in those train tunnels and roadway tunnels. So, actually, good question coming in from Robert Haynes here right now. Have there been any archaeological studies or excavations at the Shakespeare Town site?
Not per se.
Okay.
Of course, like all of us have a nasty tendency. We'll go out there after a good windstorm or that rare rainstorm and see what washes up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my big lucky find is I was up there where the old hustler from the stage station, well, after the stage shut down, he ran a boot repair shop at the top of the street. I found one of his straight knives had washed up.
Really?
And except for the fact that the wooden handle was just deteriorated, once I knocked all the surface rust off the blade, it took an edge, and I get tempted every once in a while to put a new handle on it to put it to work.
Interesting.
Here in the last few years, just because we had the time and the interest, the El Paso Prospectors Club, we've invited them up. With the rule that, hey, if you find it, you got to let us know about it, and then also let us know where you found it so we can kind of plot it. And we've recovered some mining chits.
Okay.
A whole lot of pocket watches.
Really?
Mainly the old $1 watches you used to be able to buy at the hardware store.
Okay.
The equivalent, the old West clock. Of course, it's kind of hard and difficult because you got to know what you're looking for because, let's face it, they weren't very green. If it broke, they just pitched it out their back door.
Broken, couldn't be fixed. And we're talking about $1 may sound like not a lot then. It would have been a decent amount of money at that point in time, but not exactly the top quality or even medium quality timepiece of that point in time.
Yeah, well, what I'm saying is that, it's like 10 cans.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of sardine cans, a lot of condensed milk cans.
Oh, yeah.
Every once in a while, I will find a tobacco tin.
Okay.
Coarse carbide cans from the later period. Lard buckets out outrageous amount of lard buckets out there.
Interesting. And when talking about the carbide cans, would that be for the mining
lamps? My favorite thing is I could going in the back rich poverty flat. I could probably build me a Johnny Cash Model T.
Okay.
One piece at a time.
Just out of the scrap there. Carbide is its own interesting piece of technology. People may think they mostly think of it in terms of like coal mines because the idea of the carbide there is They may think like, oh, we got a light bulb on your head. It's actually a small flame done by dripping water at a set rate onto what looks like rocks, but it then produces that acetylene gas that then just by pressure lights there.
Thing is, though, there are lamps. You can still buy a place out of Ohio catering to non-electric users. You can still buy carbine lamps.
Yep, and again, it's a strange concept. The idea that you got a bunch of rocks that turn into a light with water. It's just almost completely outside of the modern experience of how you produce light here. So
I'm old enough to remember my uncle used to go hunting with a carbine lamp. So.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. So that's the kind of stuff you can find out there. So I guess in answer to Robert's question, kind of, but not really, in terms of archaeological, actual laying out of a grid, digging down, see what we can find, because like the whole area, I mean, it is a National Historic Site. It's important to mention here.
Site is privately owned, but it's on the register.
Okay.
Which means, you get the regulations, but no real help, as General would always used to point out. But, the university wanted to come out and contact Dave about a dig. I'm willing to bet he would be willing to do it. But so far, it's like, hey, we've been trying to keep it untouched. So in case somebody does want to come through, it's there.
So like you're doing the tours, you're doing the, getting people to experience it, but it's not necessarily like the other example that comes to mind to me was the early stories about, say, Carlsbad Caverns, where they'd have people, do the tourist tour, and then someone wanting a souvenir would just go up and break off one of the little water pipe stalactites, being like, wow, there's 1,000 of them here. What does it matter if I take one? But if everyone had that mentality, the site would be stripped bare because it takes millions of years to make that water pipe stalactite. So that's kind of in mind of a both experience but conservation of the site.
Right. Glass. I mean, it's that there. Unfortunately, we lost probably one of the best purple glass collections you'd ever want to see in a fire in '97.
Oh, okay.
Because the story about the purple glass in the region. Manganese contaminant in the use. So as it's exposed over to UV light over the years, it turns purple.
Interesting.
It's not that not the cobalt like the medicine bottles. Matter of fact, John Lou used to have this one tall table lamp, the pedestal type. And that was destroyed in a fire. But it was a beautiful shade of purple. And that's some of the stuff. Every once in a while, we'll still find an intact whiskey bottle. Matter of fact, here not too long ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I always walk the Arroyos when I get up there after I haven't been there for a while, just to see what's come up since the last time I was there. Saw a neck of a whiskey bottle. I said, "Oh, this is neat." Tug on it. Oh, I got a quarter of a whiskey bottle. Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Then we dug a little more. Hey, I got half of one. Well, by the time I was done, I had an intact one, which was probably the first one we found in a while. But we used to find them all the time after a heavy rain.
Yeah, because, I mean, you were talking about glass here, and sure, it can resist the weathers of nature better than most materials of the time. We're talking about here, the handles and such you were mentioning, but glass also has the tendency to be very fragile, and particularly if you're finding something discarded out there, people tend not to be gentle with that. Well, I'm done with this. If they're chucking it, they're not going to lay it down gently on a bed of hay. They're just done with it.
Throw it out the back door. One site was a saloon. Well, it used to be an assay office before they became a saloon. So they just pitched the crucibles and the assaying kiln out the back door. It's all scattered down the back side of the hill, back behind this place. I didn't realize it was an assay office till I sat there and found a couple of the crucibles. And I sat there and asked Jen Lou, "Are they using these for shot glasses or something, or what?" So no, it was an assay office. It is, So
and I think we got a picture of the assay office.
Now that's the Shakespeare Gold and Silver Milling and Mining Company assay office.
Ah, okay, so different than you're talking about.
It's a whole different one. Now this one, that's our crown jewel right now.
Okay.
Now in 1986, we about lost that building.
Really?
Now in '84, Jen Lou had married Manny Hogue, and he was a retired maintenance worker from back east. He came out west. As a matter of fact, he was on his second career. And the building was, you could read the newspaper through the walls. They were that thin.
Ooh, okay.
It wasn't safe for us to go in, much less visitors. So he spent a better part of a year pouring the walls, rebuilding that building. And by the time he got the cabinetry redone, folks, friends of Jan Lou's had bought the old Pyramid Mine about 5 miles down the road.
Okay.
Well, the mining company that owned the Shakespeare Gold and Silver Mining Company also owned the Pyramid Mining Company.
Okay.
Two separate companies, but the name of the guilty are the same in the letterheads.
Okay.
Matter of fact, a good traditional southern New Mexico, southern Arizona mining scam, they would, if they wanted to boost the investment in one mine or the other, they would transfer the galleries interconnect below ground. So they would move the ore back and forth to boost production, depending on which one they were pushing at the time.
So when we're talking about galleries connecting underground, we're talking about two mines, and they've managed to connect to each other here. And so you got two different technical exits, and whichever one is where it exits from, the wherever it was mined actually is where it gets counted for.
Right. So anyway,
jeez,
they get busted for that more than once, but that, from my understanding, that's a good old West tradition. Anyway, they packed up, crated up all that equipment there in the you saw in the photograph. They shipped it to Pyramid. That's where it sat until about the 1980s when these folks bought the property. They're going through the buildings, saw these crates marked Shakespeare Gold, Silver Milling and Mining Company. They called Janaloo. So that is the equipment out of that lab.
Wow. So we are actually overdue for that next break right now. I'm looking at the clock here because we're having a good discussion, and we will continue to do so. Again, joined here in studio by Keith Wilden, historian with the town of Shakespeare. So we got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll get to more of the specifics and how the town ended up how it did. We've charted a little bit of the history. We'll get closer to closing it out for you after this break here on the El Paso History Radio Show on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Many retired El Paso area homeowners don't know where to begin when it comes to downsizing and selling their home. Patrick Tuttle and his Legacy Home Team follow a proven process to help retired homeowners sell faster and for more money. Call Patrick Tuttle at 915-588-1850 today and get your home sold faster and for more money. That's Patrick Tuttle at 915-588-1850. Call him today.
M1 EP Management Corporation is proud to sponsor the El Paso History Show. If you're tired of the ups and downs of the stock market, invest in real estate. M1 EP manages apartments in El Paso and helps investors buy, hold, and sell property. See the website, m1ep.com, m1ep.com. To learn more about the many benefits and long-term appreciation of investing in real estate, call 915-592-4549. 915-592-4549.
Talk El Paso weekdays at 4 on News Radio 690 KTSM, breaking down the impact of the news on the borderland and beyond. Brought to you in part by Mission Del Rey Southwest, Souvenirs, Gifts, and Decor. That's Talk El Paso, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Hey folks, this is Andrew J. Polk, and I love supporting local and experiencing all the world has to offer, which is why I love Enhanced Flavors, your local source of over 40 quality flavored olive oils and balsamic vinegars. You don't have to scour the globe or even leave home to taste all that's offered in extra virgin olive oil and great flavored varieties from Italy, Greece, Spain, and Tunisia, and certified balsamic vinegar straight from the Modena province of Italy. Look for Enhanced Flavors at your favorite farmers markets to spice up your life, or find them online at enhancedflavors.com.
Do you find yourself stuck in a timeshare? Get the real facts about the timeshare industry and your options for cancellation. Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group, beat the largest timeshare company in federal court and has put together a free information guide that reveals the secrets the timeshare industry doesn't want you to know, including the 5 ways to get rid of your timeshare. Call now and get this timeshare cancellation guide absolutely free.
Call 800-507-4900. That's 800-507-4900.
What's for dinner? Burgers?
After last week, no thanks.
Avoiding foods due to fear of diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools? It may not be just stomach issues. It could be EPI, or exocrine pancreatic insufficiency. EPI can cause uncomfortable symptoms because it's a condition where the pancreas doesn't release enough digestive enzymes to break down food. But EPI can be managed. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor about your symptoms. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
And now, let's turn back the pages of time and return to the El Paso History Radio Show. Brought to you by Patrick Tuttle, Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate. 915-588-1850. Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant, 6761 Donovan Drive. By M1 EP Management Corporation, 915-592-4549. By Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Lee Trevino, with El Paso Souvenirs, Decor, and Gift Shopping. Here again, El Paso History with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for the El Paso History Radio Show here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Got to tell you about what we got coming up for you next on the show here. We're going to be talking about the Los Portales Museum and the origination, essentially, of El Paso County, some of the very foundational elements of why otherwise settlements exist in this area, and also, of course, the exhibits they have there and their future expansion. So be sure to tune in for that next week on the program. Also, one more sponsor, of course, to remind you about Mission Del Rey Southwest. Go there with out-of-town visitors for souvenirs, jewelry, gifts, and decor. They have a lot of great items, surprising things that you're probably going to be hard-pressed to find just about anywhere else. A good place to get the felt, decorative, and literal flavor of the Southwest, among other things. They have a great supply in stock of locally produced, goods and items, consumables, food, etc. that you can either give for yourself if you're looking for that kind of thing, or again, for friends, family, and any of those gift-giving holidays. So again, souvenirs, jewelry, gifts, and decor. Go to missiondelrey.com, or again, visit their 12,000 square foot showroom out there on Lee Trevino. Mention the El Paso History Radio Show for a discount. If you want to contact them directly, the number to call for them is 915-440-2140, 915-440-2140, or again, missiondelrey.com. And they do quite the good shipping move out there, because of course they will ship worldwide and have done so ever since the advent of those ever so slightly impacting global situations there. And of course, you're joined in studio by Keith Wilden with the town of Shakespeare as a historian. I actually have a couple of questions and comments coming in over on the social media right now. Vince Sanchez mentioning fun place out there, done some work out there. And Barbara Gimvaney with Remember in El Paso, and asking you, Keith, anything that you know about history of Emma Marble, who married John Muir, related to this.
That's a whole segment in its own.
Fair enough here. So we got a pretty short one here. So we'll get to that question a little bit more in the next longer one. But just real quick, putting a pin in the whole idea of the railroad and transportation. I've been to more than a couple of places in my time that were defined, lived, and died by their ability to actually have transport there. So it's not necessarily that the railroad was the immediate and irrevocable doom of the town of Shakespeare by not going through it, but it's a kind of a slow drain of, sure, the water was there, but everything else easy was then not in arm's reach within that town anymore. It was now within Lordsburg.
Right. So things started to drift down there. And like I said, it wasn't an overnight like some other towns where, hey, the railroad goes in, within a year it's gone. It took time.
Mm-hmm.
Was especially once they got their own wells set in there, and reliable wells. But either in the third mining boom about 1905, they ended up having to put a spur line through Shakespeare to head to the mines to get the ore down.
Then a spur would have been a level of connection, but still the ease of access, the major transits.
That didn't help the town, because that was just running ore cars. But so everybody, if you wanted to really do business, most of the businesses had moved to Lordsburg by the 30s.
Families, etc. So makes a level of sense there. And I mean, they're the examples that you can point to throughout history of how that changed. From my personal history, where my spouse is from, her hometown of Galena, Illinois, was actually where from Ulysses S. Grant was. That was his hometown, and where his campaign for president was based out of. And it was considered on the level of almost a boom town near Chicago, rival of Chicago at its point in time, except it didn't have rail lines. It had a wide, flat part of the river there, except in their instance, the river silted in, so the steamboats could no longer access there. And so that town all but abandoned, and still now is in the low thousands, and is a kind of a tourist destination among other things. But it'd be more globally, the reason Venice had its dominance, ability was because it had, again, sea travel and water travel, but it was able to then have direct access to all of the coastlines where other places may not have. So literally, I mean, rise and falls of empires have been charted by the accessibility of transportation. And so the rail lines coming through here, again, that was one of the defining moments for El Paso. The rail lines coming through, as is decently demonstrated in Viva El Paso, among other things. It's a good example of it.
It's a good example. I mean, we would, hey, anybody listening from Laredo, don't take me wrong, but let's face it, Laredo isn't that big of a town. It's got its border crossing. It's still a major port of entry, but it's nowhere near the size of El Paso. If the railroad wouldn't have come through here, we'd probably be just another Laredo.
Yep, and so that's a good way to think of it here. So that'll take us to the next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll talk more about that question we got asked, as well as, of course, how the town came to be in the situation it is now in terms of just management, among other things, and again, how you can go at it and experience it for yourself. So we'll be back with this break after this break here on more on the El Paso History Radio Show here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso History TV is now available for free on YouTube.com. Take a look at recent ABC7 news reports by Bernie Sargent on El Paso History TV about Waco tanks, the Franklin Mountains, Concordia Cemetery, and more. The YouTube channel also has more than 100 videos about El Paso history with lectures, documentaries, and various history clips. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV and find out how Texas history begins in El Paso. Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant and Cantina serves the old Griggs Mexican food recipes in a new location at 6761 Donovan Drive. Enjoy great New Mexican food with cold beer and the one and only margarita from the cantina. The managers and cooks from the original Griggs restaurant serve tacos, combination plates, and sopapillas. Get the best Mexican food in the valley at Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant and Cantina, 6761 Donovan, near Loop 375. Call 877-2152.
What's all the buzz about cleaning your nose, nasal hygiene, and navage? The science is simple. Your nose is the body's air filter for trapping allergens and viruses, but it's not perfect. Like washing your hands and brushing your teeth, it's time to start cleaning your nose too. Navage uses powered suction to pull saline in one nostril to the back of the nose where most germs and viruses multiply, then flushes them out the other nostril before they reach your lungs. My name's Martin Hoke, and I didn't invent nasal irrigation. It's been around thousands of years. I did invent Navage to make it easy for everyone. In less than 30 seconds, you can clean your nose. And because it's all natural and drug-free, it's safe to use Navage every single day. Are you ready to join nearly 3 million people who use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier? At Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage, Navage, clean nose, healthy life.
iHeartRadio Earth is here with little tips for a healthier planet. Globally, about 1,000 plants we depend on for food and products need to be pollinated by animals, including coffee, melons, chocolate, almonds, and even tequila. Help stabilize the declining honeybee population by planting native plants that they rely on for food, habitat, and nesting. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
COVID-19 research has come a long way, but there's still more to understand about how to treat COVID-19 effectively. The Active 6 study is researching existing medications to find out if they may help people with COVID feel better and get back to the things they love faster. The best part? It can all be done from the comfort of home. We'll send medications to your door, and you'll take surveys completely online. Learn more at active6study.org/radio. That's activ6study.org/radio.
Mesa Street Grill, celebrating is what we do best. Let us help you plan the event of your dreams. Our events coordinator will take care of everything from design, decor, live music, customized menus, and all the details in between. Mesa Street Grill wants to be here for all of your special moments. Call 915-532-1881 or email events@mesastreetgrill.com. We believe every day is worth celebrating. Inquire about our Mesa Street Grill event packages today.
Diabetes, high blood pressure, anxiety meds, everyone's on them. If you're a 50-year-old male, maybe a bit porky, and you may even have type 2 diabetes, $1 million of term insurance may only cost you about $200 a month. Call Term Provider. Speak with Big Lou at 800-777-1225. Big Lou will find a term life policy for you even if you have type 2 diabetes, are overweight, or have high blood pressure. Term Provider has helped thousands of people like you who think they can't afford term life insurance. To buy $1 million of affordable term life for you, all you need to do is call Big Lou at 800-777-1225. Lou will make sure the scales are tipped in your favor. Call 800-777-1225. Big Lou will answer your call and work to fit you into a term life policy that you can afford. Remember, Big Lou's like you. He's on meds, too. Call 800-777-1225. 800-777-1225.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
And now, let's turn back the pages of time and return to the El Paso History Radio Show. Brought to you by Patrick Tuttle, Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate, 915-588-1850. Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant, 6761 Donovan Drive. By M1 EP Management Corporation, 915-592-4549. By Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Lee Trevino, with El Paso souvenirs, decor, and gift shopping. Here again, El Paso History with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you for joining us here for the El Paso History Radio Show, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. As I mentioned, some of our other partners in promotion of area things this week only in El Paso Inc. How UTEP and a number of other entities are working together to develop the region's aerospace and defense industries. City Manager Tommy Gonzalez sat down with El Paso Inc. to discuss city council conflicts, the Frisco job, and more. Despite rising gas prices and temperatures, El Paso is still a fun summer of activities. We've rounded up some for you. El Paso's business journal, El Paso Inc., is available for home and business delivery. Find them online at elpasoinc.com. In the meantime, here, but of course, make sure to pick up your edition there or have it delivered to you over this weekend. But in the meantime, we are joined here still by Keith Wilden, historian with the town of Shakespeare. We've been popping up a lot of the pictures of some of the different areas as you are often out there as well. And we got a question that did come in, as we also have Maria M. Barragan joining us from West Valley City, Utah. Thank you for chiming in over there. But the actual town itself here, how it came to pass the actual, slow abandonment that we mentioned there, because it was not necessarily overnight, but in short order after the railway bypass, which could also be seen as the story of quite a lot of smaller towns and settlements out there that once the more advanced form of transportation bypassed it, whatever status it had tended to degrade unless there was a real good reason for it to stick around.
Well, even like in the third boom was mainly residences. The third boom went from about 1902 up to 1932. Now, the first two booms mainly dealt with silver.
Right.
Now, that second boom ended in 93. Of course, that's also the year we went to the gold standard. The price of silver bottomed out. So, hey, it went from like $12 an ounce to less than a quarter an ounce. So now it was no longer profitable. That's when the mine shut down.
And so the gold standard here, not just being a qualitative measure, but the literal backing of that precious metal on our currency.
Right. So that kind of put the quash on the mines. And of course, that's when a lot of folks packed up and moved elsewhere. This is also when a lot of the buildings disappeared. Because, hey, the adobe, most of the buildings there, of course, were built of adobe. You took your lumber that you use for your roofing and your doors with you because that costs money to use for your new home wherever you ended up at. So, of course, adobe, once it's exposed to the elements, it doesn't take long for Mother Nature to reclaim it.
Yeah, and or if other incidents such as, flooding and or fires.
Right. We don't talk about fire too loudly.
You don't want to invite it. Exactly.
Yeah, we had a major one, took out 3 of the buildings in 1997. Oof. And that included the crown jewel of the town, the general merchandise. So fire is always a touchy subject.
Understandably so.
Anyway, so it's our third boom. That was copper. And I was trying to figure out why the mine shut down overnight in 32. Because that third boom, the first 2 booms were mainly Anglos with a handful of Hispanics.
Okay.
The third boom, the mine workers this time were predominantly Mexican Americans or Mexican nationals.
Okay.
A lot of them, of course, getting out of Mexico to avoid the turmoil and the violence and the leading up to and including the Mexican Revolution.
Yeah, that would have been the right time there. Absolutely. Right.
So the mining company, but basically it was the predecessor to Phelps Dodge and all the others, had bought up all the old mining claims. Now they've put up 2 company towns, Valadin, which is only a mile further south of Shakespeare, and Banner about another quarter mile past. And that's, of course, where the superintendents, the engineers, and all the higher ups lived. The mine workers themselves lived there at Shakespeare. It was basically a residence town. Matter of fact, I don't have any listing of any stores still in operation at that time. So anyway, what happened was it ended up that when the mine shut down, the folks, in Banner and Valadin, well, those poor folks, and they got 24 hours to vacate their homes.
Oof. Okay.
Now, the thing is, though, from my understanding, when Phelps Dodge shut down their operations in Playas and turned over the town, things ain't changed too much. From my understanding, from the time they got the written notice, it was 72 hours.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
that was back, 2004. So things don't change too much. Well, the folks living in Shakespeare, had a chance to find someplace else to live.
Yeah, again, more gradual because it wasn't as
Right.
much of a company town because it had been around before the company
Right.
had been there.
Right. Now, the thing that got me, though, is I always wondered what caused the mines to shut down in 1932. Now, just overnight. Then I found in the official National Geography Office survey, the copper ore at the Shakespeare mines wasn't as a good quality ore.
Okay.
But for the smelting process, it was used as a kind of a primer ore to get the things cooking before you introduce the high grade ore.
So, like, not exactly like coke or a ballast to remove impurities, but somewhere in between. It almost
Yeah,
sounds
something
like.
like that. Basically, it was. I don't understand. Hey, I know cows. I know
Fair
gunfights.
enough. We're
but
getting
on
technical
mining,
here,
yeah,
sure.
but it was used like a feeder ore to get things going in the smelter before
Okay.
you introduce the high grade stuff. Well, they changed the smelting process in 32 where they didn't need that feeder ore. So
Okay.
now it was no longer worthwhile to go after it. So they ended up shut the mines down. A typical mining company, hey, shut it down because they ain't making us any money. And that's what happened there. And that was kind of the death knell of Shakespeare as a town.
So then how did it end up in the modern ownership and the modern involvement here of the people who are now running it?
That's a family history. It runs longer than the town was around. 1935, Texas cowboy Frank Hill bought that town site. It was up for sale. Bought it as his ranch headquarters.
Okay.
Now, his wife, Rita, was a former school teacher with a love for history.
Okay.
And she got to running around, and a lot of the old timers were still around, and she started collecting their stories. And she realized what a treasure she had there. So she started, collecting the stories, trying to save what they could of the buildings. Up until the fire of 97, only one other building has been lost. And it was pretty much just a few walls, but they finally completely went down between the 30s and the 50s.
Okay, and there was some significance to this particular building we got up on screen here right now, right?
Yeah, that is Rita's shack. Now, when I-10 was put in 1973, now you got to remember, Shakespeare is technically still a working cattle ranch. We got the ranch leased out to a rancher now because, quite frankly, I ain't got time to work my cows myself anymore. It cut through one of the main pastures. If you go out to the west side of town, you see where the Lowe's is and that big Exxon station, and that last exit when you're leaving town. Well, if you look off to when you pass that, either side is pastures for the ranch.
Okay.
Well, there was no provision initially for getting water across that highway or cows.
Ooh. Okay, that would be insignificant.
Now, Frank Hill had already passed away, so it was just Rita and her daughter, Jana Lou, the lady and then the other picture. They wrote up to Santa Fe trying to get regress for their problems, and they were ignored. Rita tried to do a protest march up in front of the Capitol. No response. No, wasn't budging. No. So that little shack happened to be sitting down there in one of the pastures, so she had friends drag it out there, and she blocked construction on that western exit for over 90 days.
Okay, so literal protest, not
yeah.
not quite chaining yourself to something, but not too far from it either.
Well, it ended up happening. We had Time, Newsweek, Good Morning America, The Today Show. I mean, everybody was there to sit there. This little old lady standing up against the state of New Mexico. Now,
okay.
They finally arrested her, and I love the picture because they got a deputy in either arm, and she's got her feet cupped up. They had to physically pick her up and carry her. She wasn't resisting, but she wasn't going willingly.
Yeah, now I can make it easy for you.
All right. They ordered that shack destroyed. While she was furious with the folks in Santa Fe, she didn't take it out on the construction crew because they were just doing their job.
Oh, sure.
So instead of bulldozing it, they just drug it up, and up until 2008. That sat in a little hill back behind the Exxon station, overlooking the intersection.
Wow.
So we moved it down into town now in the process of preserving it.
Excellent. So that's just some of the modern history there as part of it here. That's going to take us through this last break of the hour right now. Coming out of this break, we'll kind of finish out some final thoughts on this. And again, reminding you how you can go and experience it for yourself. Again, joining us here in studio is Keith Wilden, historian with the town of Shakespeare. And also have Bernie Sargent joining us from PV, Texas over there. So take a couple more of those and such after this break with more on the El Paso History Radio Show here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Many retired El Paso area homeowners don't know where to begin when it comes to downsizing and selling their home. Patrick Tuttle and his Legacy Home team follow a proven process to help retired homeowners sell faster and for more money. Call Patrick Tuttle at 915-588-1850 today and get your home sold faster and for more money. That's Patrick Tuttle at 915-588-1850. Call him today.
M1 EP Management Corporation is proud to sponsor the El Paso History Show. If you're tired of the ups and downs of the stock market, invest in real estate. M1 EP manages apartments in El Paso and helps investors buy, hold, and sell property. See the website, m1ep.com. M1ep.com. To learn more about the many benefits and long-term appreciation of investing in real estate, call 915-592-4549. 915-592-4549.
At Napa, when it comes to serving you, their motor never quits. From curbside and next-day delivery on over 160,000 auto parts to getting involved with the local communities. That's Napa know-how.
Talk El Paso weekdays at 4 on News Radio 690 KTSM, breaking down the impact of the news on the borderland and beyond. Brought to you in part by Mission Del Rey Southwest, souvenirs, gifts, and decor. That's Talk El Paso, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. M1EP.com, superior multifamily property management services citywide.
The uh-ohs are out there. Scratches, dents, unexpected natural events. But with Mako and their magic, your car is no longer tragic. So when life throws you uh-ohs, just say,
better get Mako.
And go to Mako.com to book your appointment today.
Uh-oh, Brad's buzzed. Oh, yeah? Yeah, he's starting with the woots. Good thing is, he knows when he's buzzed.
Know your buzzed warning signs? Call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
If you have a small business, Staples has your sign.
Banners for my bakery?
Staples has your sign.
Oh, posters for my new pet store.
Floor decals for a pharmacy. Every day, Staples associates help every kind of small business create bold signs to make big impressions. And now get $10 off custom signs, banners, and posters when you spend $50 or more. This is your sign, so print it big at Staples. N72. Visit staplesconnect.com/thisisyoursign for details.
I contacted you because an uncle of mine was murdered about 20 years ago.
A bullet smashes through Dr. Barnett Slepian's kitchen window.
They were watching us. That's the scary part.
Dr. Slepian's murder struck fear in the medical community and devastated his family.
I just became obsessed with Bart's killer.
I'm David Ridgen, and this is the return of Someone Knows Something. Listen to Someone Knows Something on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you listen to podcasts.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
And now, let's turn back the pages of time and return to the El Paso History Radio Show. Brought to you by Patrick Tuttle, Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate. 915-588-1850.
Got it.
Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant, 6761 Donovan Drive. By M1 EP Management Corporation, 915-592-4549. By Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Lee Trevino, with El Paso souvenirs, decor, and gift shopping. Here again, El Paso History with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for the El Paso History Radio Show, airing live here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk, also having joined us here in studio, Keith Wilden, with his historian with the town of Shakespeare. We've covered a lot of ground on the idea of it. A lot of comments coming in here right at the end. Vince Sanchez saying that y'all need to visit during one or more of the tour weekends. Very historically interesting aspects about that place. Connected to well-known icons of the American Old West, absolutely here, as well as Barbara Given-Bainey saying knew the daughter, actually, that was mentioned about Emma Marble and John Muir, who my people might be familiar with, well, kind of from the Muir building that, of course, was standing in downtown El Paso. But, I mean, the history is still out there, and people can, of course, go visit it. Again, the map that we're popping up over on the social media pages right now, it's about a 2.5 hour drive at guesstimation, depending on how you treat speed limits.
Yeah. I remember doing it in an hour and a half once, but we won't talk about that.
I'm about to say, we fully encourage people to do what is not going to get them in trouble. And take that as however you may mean. But of course, those tours going on more or less every day, but just, courtesy call is nice if you can to visit, Shakespeare at ghosttown.com. But the number to call to find out about tours, 575-542-9034. Again, 575-542-9034. And so the question that come in that Barbara Giffen Bainey had asked about Emma Marple and Mary John Muir, I mean, that is kind of significant for the whole region as well, right?
Right, because, Emma and her family moved there in 1882. She married John Muir, who happened to be a cowboy, in 1899. Well, by the time it was done and over with, John probably had about the second largest ranch in the Boot Heel, New Mexico, real estate in El Paso, Deming, and Lordsburg, a bank in each of those three cities, and major oil and gas assets. When the bank panic hit in 29, he actually liquidated his gas and oil interests to raise the cash, and he had the only three banks that remained open during the banking holiday.
So people may remember that scene from what is it? It's a Wonderful Life, of all the money getting pulled out, and they happen to have $2 left.
Right.
Kind of similar here, but they managed to
thing.
keep three banks going.
Yeah, he kept three banks going that way. He served a couple of terms as a legislator in Santa Fe. Not a pretentious man. Their home still stands in Lordsburg. It's not the biggest. It's not the fanciest. It's just comfortable.
So that's just a part of the history that, again, goes through that area, and so people can go see the tours there. Again, Shakespeare Ghost Town, just find that website for the information on how to get there and where to find it out, and make sure that the people that you need to be out there are going to be there that day.
Right.
But again, a lot more availability than has previously existed. And just one thing that has struck me this whole time, talking about the boom and bust and how the development of the Southwest was exemplified by these small towns that if there's something to latch onto, they'd be there as long as it was there. And almost the vagaries of fate of if they continued on or not reminds me a lot of, in the more modern sense, of like the Midland and Odessa area and the Permian Basin, and how the oil field exploration and expansion continues to wax and wane, and how there might be times when, things are bad economically out there, but then there might be other times when there's like 101% occupancy of every literal, like, if you've got a closet that you could fit someone sleeping standing up in, you'd rent it out.
Right. Feast or famine, and either you can pay $1 million for a phone booth. The next day, you can't sell a 20 bedroom mansion for $5.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting way to think about it in this modern standpoint, and why even these concepts and vagaries continue on to this day here. So Keith, thank you very much for having joined us here and talk about this history and how people can, again, literally go through and see it today.
Because like I said, you go through there, we tell you the stories, and believe me, there's a lot. And both of us have this nasty tendency. We talk about what you want to talk about. So, hey, it's not the robot patter.
And of course, you got some, again, mild reenactments that happened out there.
Yeah, that's about 2010, 2012, looking at the size of the boy.
So yeah, some mild conscription not really happening out there. So again, check it out for yourself if you want to. I got to make it out there one of these days. But again, Keith, thank you very much for having joined us in studio here today. And Rodney Lincus a little bit earlier. But that'll do it for the show. Y'all have a great weekend out there. We'll be going out to Pepe's later, so hope to see you there.
Thank you for listening to the El Paso History Radio Show. We hope you'll join us again next Saturday morning, 10 to noon. And be sure to tell a friend about us. Brought to you by Patrick Tuttle Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate, 915-588-1850. By Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant, home of the Juan and Only Margarita. By M1 EP Management Corporation. By Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Lee Trevino, with El Paso souvenirs, decor, and gift shopping. Thank you for joining us from the studios of News Radio 690, KTSM AM El Paso.
This is Michael David from Seattle. I'm 51 years old, and 6 months ago, I started taking Andro 400 to increase my testosterone. Since then,